The night bus rolled into the empty terminal, headlights cutting through the fog. It was almost midnight, and only a handful of passengers climbed aboard. The air smelled faintly of rain and gasoline. The driver, an older man with a weathered face, nodded silently as each person showed their ticket. She stepped on last, clutching a worn backpack. Her eyes scanned the dim interior. Most of the seats were empty, yet she felt uneasy. She chose a seat near the middle, close enough to others but not too close. The bus door hissed shut and the ride began. The city lights faded quickly. Replaced by long stretches of highway, the bus hummed steadily, a low vibration that filled the silence. The passengers were quiet. Some scrolled through phones. Some leaned against the windows half asleep. A young man in the back tapped his foot nervously. An older woman clutched her purse tightly. She stared out the window, the fog thickening. The highway seemed emptier than usual. Not a single car passed them, only the steady drone of the bus. She shivered, pulling her jacket tighter. The first stop came after 20 minutes, a lonely shelter with a single flickering light. The driver opened the door, but no one stood outside. The bus waited anyway, the door hanging open. The cold night air spilled in after a minute. A figure appeared out of the fog, a tall man in a long coat walking slowly. His steps echoed unnaturally loud on the pavement. He climbed aboard without looking at anyone, slid into a seat near the front and stared straight ahead. The door closed, the bus rumbled on. She tried to shake the unease, but her skin prickled. Something about the man felt wrong. He hadn't looked at the driver, hadn't looked at the passengers, he just sat still. Hands on his knees, face unreadable. The second stop came 20 minutes later. Another empty shelter. This time, two figures emerged from the fog together. A woman and a child. They moved strangely, their steps too synchronized, as if one was controlling the other. The child never lifted its head. The woman never blinked. They sat 2 rows ahead of her, silent. She glanced around, hoping the other passengers would react, but no one seemed to notice. The young man in the back still tapped his foot. The older woman still clutched her purse. It was as if they hadn't seen the new passengers at all. Her throat tightened. She whispered to herself, "It's fine. It's nothing." But her gut told her otherwise. The third stop came deeper into the countryside. No lights this time, only darkness. The door opened. Silence. She leaned slightly, trying to see, and then slowly, 5 figures climbed aboard, all dressed alike, their faces obscured by the shadows of their hoods. They sat scattered across the bus, never speaking, never moving. The bus felt colder now. The windows fogged. She rubbed at the glass, but the outside world was gone. Only endless dark stretching in every direction. No houses, no cars, not even stars. Her pulse quickened. She glanced at the driver. His eyes stared forward, unblinking. His hands gripped the wheel, stiff as if carved from stone. She whispered, "Where are we going?" But no answer came. The bus rattled forward. Stop after stop. Each time, more strange passengers climbed aboard. Silent, heavy with presence, none ever got off. The seats filled. Yet the air grew emptier, colder. Her breath came shaky. She clutched her backpack to her chest. Every instinct screamed that she shouldn't be here. But the bus never stopped long enough for her to leave. And when she finally gathered courage to stand, she realized something horrifying. All of the passengers, every single one, were staring at her, their eyes blank, unblinking, fixed. The bus engine roared louder, carrying her deeper into the night. She stayed seated, afraid to move. The bus felt colder with every mile. The windows were fully fogged now, and the fog seemed to move on its own, like breath from something large outside. The driver never spoke, never looked back. The road beneath them rumbled like a distant storm. The tall man in the long coat sat near the front. His posture never changed. His hands stayed flat on his knees. Yet she felt his attention on her, heavy and silent. The woman and child 2 rows ahead leaned together in the same position, heads tilted at the same angle. The child's face was hidden behind long hair that never shifted. Not even when the bus hit bumps, they reached another stop. There was no shelter now, no sign, just darkness and the open door. A cold wind slid down the aisle. Carrying a faint smell of wet soil, 3 more passengers climbed in. Moving in a slow line, they wore old clothes, like they had stepped out of another year. Their eyes were glassy, unfocused. Each took a seat without looking around. She pressed the call button above her seat. The little light clicked on. A soft chime rang for the driver. He did not respond. She pressed it again and again. The chime kept ringing in the quiet, and then, all at once, every call light on the bus flicked on. Every seat chimed together, a chorus of soft bells in the dark. Her breath shook. She stood up. Gripping the rail, "Excuse me," she said, her voice too loud in the quiet. "Driver, please." "Where are we going?" The driver did not turn. His jaw moved once as if fighting to speak. Then the radio above his head crackled. It did not play music, it whispered. The whisper was not one voice, it was many voices layered together. Some high, some low, some broken. All said the same 3 words over and over. "Stay in seat." She sank back down. Her hands were cold. Her phone had no signal. The clock on the screen froze at 12:17. It would not change. No matter how long she watched it, at the next stop, the bus doors opened to a wall of fog that looked solid. A figure stepped in without shape at first, like smoke trying to become a person. As it moved down the aisle, it grew clearer. It became a man with a cap pulled low, but his shadow did not match his body. The shadow lagged behind, half a second late, turning corners after him. He sat directly across from her. His eyes were dull, but he smiled, slow and wrong. The smile did not reach his eyes, he whispered. "You chose the night bus." He did not blink. "Now the night chooses you." She clutched her backpack tighter. The bus pulled away, the doors hissed shut, and every head, without turning their bodies, angled just enough to keep her in view. She could not take it anymore. She slid into the aisle and moved forward, one hand on each seat back to steady herself. "Sir, I need to get off," she said, her voice shaking. "Please, stop at the next town." The driver's hands were locked on the wheel. The road ahead was a dark ribbon. The radio above him whispered again, but this time the voices were clearer. They spoke like an announcement. "Next town, last town, never town." She stared at the windshield. There were no road signs, no headlights from other cars. The bus headlights seemed to hit air and stop, as if the darkness had weight. The tall man in the long coat stood up without a sound. He moved into the aisle, blocking her path to the driver. Up close, she saw how still his face really was, not just calm, but fixed. The skin did not crease. The jaw sat too perfectly. He whispered, "Tickets are collected at the end." She swallowed hard. "The end of what?" "The route," he said, his head tilted just a little too far. "Everyone must ride the whole route." Behind her, seatbelts clicked in unison. Those who had none simply tightened their hands around the rests. The woman and the child turned their faces together, perfect mirrors. The 5 hooded figures leaned forward at the same time. The 3 in old clothes crossed their ankles in the same rhythm. She backed away slowly. She reached her original seat and sat down. Her backpack rested on her knees like a shield. She whispered to herself, "This is not real." She pinched her wrist hard. It hurt. She stayed. The bus slowed. The brakes sighed. The doors opened to a roadside diner that should have felt safe. It was lit with a warm yellow glow. A neon sign buzzed in the window. The letters formed the word "open," but the N flickered like it wanted to be something else. No one moved. Not a single passenger stood. The driver did not announce the stop, yet she smelled coffee. She heard dishes. She saw shapes inside the diner. She could not bear the bus any longer. She stood and stepped down the aisle. Her feet reached the first step. The cold air touched her neck, and a voice by her ear said, "Do not exit alone." She turned. The voice had belonged to the older woman who clutched her purse. The woman had not moved her lips. Her eyes were still on her lap, but the voice had been clear. "Why?" she whispered. Her throat hurt. The older woman's fingers tightened. Her knuckles went white. Then the whisper came again, softer. "Because you will not be the one who returns." A family of 4 stood up at once. They moved like they were responding to a mute signal. They stepped off together. The door hissed shut behind them. The bus waited, the engine idled, no one spoke. Time stretched thin. When the doors opened again, only 3 came back. The father, the mother, and the little boy. They sat in their seats. They looked the same. But the boy held a different toy, A wooden car with a crack down the middle. The crack was fresh. The boy never had that toy before. The empty seat where the daughter had been stayed empty. No one looked at it except her. She stared until her eyes watered. The older woman whispered with a voice not her own. Not everyone returns. The bus pulled away from the glowing diner. The neon sign went dark behind them, as if it only lit for riders on this route. Her mind slipped between panic and numbness. She tried the emergency hammer by the window, but the glass did not scratch. It felt like thick ice. The hammer left no mark. She put it back with shaking hands. The tall man in the coat turned his head toward the aisle without turning his shoulders. His voice floated like air from a vent. Windows are for seeing. Doors are for choosing. She forced herself to breathe slow. Counting helped. 1 to 4 in, 1 to 4 out. The child with the lowered head began to count too. The exact same numbers, the exact same rhythm, but with no sound. Only the movement of a tiny throat. The next stop arrived with no lights at all. The door opened to a road sign that had no words. Only arrows pointing in every direction at once. A person stood beyond the arrows. Their face wrapped in cloth, they raised one hand. And the bus lights dimmed to a dark amber. Everyone on the bus sat taller as if to see better. Only she stayed small. The wrapped person climbed aboard, they walked past her, and a smell of salt flooded her mouth. Like ocean water, but they were dry, the cloth did not drip. They sat behind the driver and folded their hands. Their shadow fell sideways on the aisle. Like the light came from a place that did not exist inside the bus. The radio spoke a new phrase. A single steady voice, time remaining, it said. 4 stops. Her breath caught. 4 stops until what? The older woman's knuckles were bloodless now. The 5 hooded figures bowed their heads in the same angle. The 3 in old clothes crossed and uncrossed their ankles. One of them's shoe heel scraped with a sound like a match. The smell of sulfur wove with the salt. She found courage enough to ask, driver, where does this route end? His jaw clicked like metal under strain. The answer came not from him, but from the low speakers over the aisle. All night routes end at the same place. The voice was not the driver's voice. It was all the passengers at once stacked on top of each other. At the road that forgets your name, her chest ached. She whispered, I will not ride to the end, the tall man answered. Everyone says that, he lowered his chin. Everyone rides, she closed her eyes. She pictured the terminal where she had boarded. The fluorescent lights, the smell of wet floor cleaner, the small coffee stand. She made herself remember the cashier's face. She repeated the cashier's name tag in her head. She would not let the road take her name. She would not become a shape in a seat. The radio clicked again. Time remaining, the calm voice said. 3 stops. She decided to try another way. She slid into the aisle and moved to the woman with the child. Ma'am, she whispered. Are you all right? The woman did not blink. Her lips did not move. But a whisper answered from somewhere near the child's hands. We got on together. The child lifted their head for the first time. The face was soft and young, the eyes were not. The eyes were old and tired. The child whispered without opening the lips. We will get off together. The small hand held something she had not seen, a paper ticket with a burned corner. The letters on it were smeared as if they had been wet too long. She turned to the 3 in old clothes. What year is it? She asked gently. One of them smiled, a kind and empty smile. Tickets are good any year, another added. As long as the route remembers you. The third one's smile trembled. I don't think it remembers me. The tall man in the coat stood again. He moved toward her. Everyone else sat still. He stopped 1 step away. You must choose a rule, he said. People ride longer when they follow a rule. Her voice was barely a breath. What rule? He raised 1 finger. Do not leave alone. He raised a 2nd finger. Do not speak your full name. He raised a 3rd. Do not look out the window when there is nothing to see. She swallowed. And if I break one, then the route chooses for you, he said. His head tilted. Few like the route's choice. The bus slowed again. The doors opened to a long field of cattails waving in wind she could not feel. The moon sat low and large, but it did not light the ground. It lit only the passengers' faces in a pale wash. The wrapped person stood and walked off the bus. The salt smell vanished with them. The doors stayed open a long time. No one else moved. She stood. Her legs shook. Come with me, she whispered to the older woman. The woman's eyes finally lifted from her lap. They were wet and grateful. "Not alone," she whispered back. The purse strap slid from her white knuckles. They stepped into the doorway together. The cold touched their cheeks like a warning. They looked at each other, they nodded. And then the older woman pulled back, eyes wide. "I hear my husband calling," she said. Though no sound came from the field, she stepped backward into the aisle. "I will get off with him." The doors hissed shut. The bus rolled forward, the radio clicked. "Time remaining," it said. 2 stops. A seat behind her was empty that had not been empty before. The tall man turned his face to the window without glassing his eyes. As if to spare her the sight, the older woman's purse lay on the floor. The strap moved once as if a hand still held it. Then it stilled. She did not cry. Fear dried the tears before they formed. The bus hummed on. The child pressed the burned ticket to the window without touching the glass. The 5 hooded figures leaned back in perfect sync. The 3 in old clothes faded a little at the edges. Like breath on a mirror, the diner from earlier appeared again outside. Exactly the same. The neon open sign buzzed. The end still tried to turn into something else. The doors opened, the coffee smell drifted in. People stood, passengers shuffled. The family of 3 rose together. The boy held the cracked wooden car. They stepped off. She turned to the tall man. "If we all go together, will we all return?" His voice came like a slow bell. "If you choose together, you return together." He lowered his head. If the place allows it, she could not trust the diner. She looked for another chance. The radio spoke softer now, almost kind. "Time remaining," it said. 1 stop. She made her choice. She moved to the aisle and faced the bus. Her voice was small but clear. "Come with me at the next stop," she said. "All who can walk, we go together, no names. No looking out, we hold hands, we leave as one." No one answered. That was normal now, but small changes appeared. The 3 in old clothes leaned toward each other. The 5 hooded figures turned their hoods by a breath. The woman placed her hand over the child's. The tall man's coat loosened at the shoulders, as if he had been holding himself too tightly for too long. The bus slowed. The final stop arrived. It was not a place, it was a space. A wide dark platform with no walls. The doors opened, and cold like deep water poured in. The smell was not salt or soil, it was nothing. A clean nothing that could erase memory. She reached out her hand. The woman with the child took it. The 3 in old clothes reached for each other and then for her. The 5 hooded figures turned their palms up, showing skin as pale as paper. The tall man stepped forward and offered his hand last. His palm was warm, human warm. They formed a chain down the aisle. They moved as one. Their eyes stayed on the floor. No one spoke a name. No one looked out into the nothing. They stepped onto the platform together. The cold hit them. It tried to pull. It tried to unthread the line of hands. But the line held for the first time. The driver turned his head. His eyes were full of hurt. He whispered with his own voice, "Do not leave anyone." She felt a hand slipping. The smallest one, she tightened her grip. The child's burned ticket crinkled between their fingers. The nothing wind pressed harder. The neon diner light flickered where there should be no diner. A bell rang from nowhere like the bus call lights. They took one more step, together. Cold rushed through them, then passed. The platform gave way to gravel under their feet. Night air moved like ordinary wind. Crickets sang. A billboard stood nearby for a town she recognized. The letters were faded but real. The chain of hands loosened. No one disappeared. The child lifted the burned ticket. It was whole now. The crack in the wooden car was gone. The 3 in old clothes looked at their sleeves as if seeing color for the first time. The 5 hooded figures lowered their hoods. They were only people, tired and thin. They turned. The night bus waited with doors open. The driver faced forward again. The tall man in the long coat released her hand last. His face softened. A real crease reached his eyes. He nodded. "You kept the rules," he said. "You chose together." "Will you come with us?" she asked. Her voice was hopeful and afraid. He looked at the bus. His coat seemed heavier. "Some must ride longer," he said gently, "until the route remembers their names." He stepped backward up the stairs. "When you hear bells at night, hold someone's hand." The doors hissed. The bus pulled away. It did not roar. It did not grind. It simply slid into the fog and was gone. The road beyond showed ordinary traffic again. A pair of headlights, the soft sweep of tail lights, the sound of an engine that belonged to a world with clocks. She checked her phone. The signal bars returned. The time changed to 2:41. Her body shook then, not from cold but from relief. The woman with the child smiled, small and real. "We got off together," she said. The three in old clothes laughed softly, unsure and bright. The five who had worn hoods looked up at the stars like people who were new to the sky. She walked toward the billboard and the two-lane road. Her shoes crunched in gravel. The town name grew clearer. It was the very next town she had planned to reach before midnight. She breathed. She whispered a thank you to the empty dark. From far away, a bus chime rang once. Gentle and distant, she did not look back. She took the woman's hand. She took the child's hand. They stepped off the gravel and onto the real road. And for the first time that night, she felt the ground remember her name,